This is a picture of me on one of the happiest days of my life. It's also a picture of a budding Gen 1er. At the time, there were only 151 Pokemon, and honestly, that was enough for me. Every new generation of Pokemon after this just never felt the same, like they were cheap imitations or knockoffs, so much so that I still consider Gen 2 Pokemon to be new Pokemon 25 years later. At least, that's how I used to feel. Lately, I've been feeling more and more like I'm missing out on something. Millions of people love these Pokemon just as much as I love the originals. Why don't I? Well, I had a conversation with Oliver from Sleeve No Card Behind about this, and he completely reframed the problem for me. I'm trying to get over my Gen 1er mindset a little bit.
I'm the same way, or I'm definitely like a Gen 1er,
Sure.
But I was just thinking, like, I think it has something to do with how we make friends, because I feel like Bulbasaur, Charmander, Squirtle are my friends. I know the Gen 1 Pokemon, I've known them forever, and then these new Pokemon come in, and I'm just not a big friend maker, you know? And it's like, it's hard to connect to these new guys.
This concept really resonated with me. As a kid, it didn't take much effort to make friends, and it didn't take any effort to fall in love with Pokemon. Making new friends as an adult does take effort. You have to put yourself out there and make something happen. So I've decided to do just that, with Pokemon, not real friends, that would be too scary. These days, my participation in the Pokemon hobby is exclusively collecting cards, but as a kid, my first love was the Game Boy games, Red and Blue. So the foundation of my plan is to combine these. I'll pick a game to play for each generation and build a Pokedex binder along the way. Whenever I catch a new Pokemon, I'll add their card to the binder. Oh, I also decided to stream the whole thing.
Welcome in, everyone.
For my introduction to the Johto region, I decided to play HeartGold. While this is technically a 4th generation game, HeartGold and Soul Silver were remakes of the original 2nd generation games Gold and Silver. They incorporate some features from Crystal as well, so HeartGold should give me a comprehensive and polished Gen 2 experience. Before we get into it, I should lay out some self-imposed rules I made for this playthrough. 1. I can only catch Gen 2 Pokemon, with a few exceptions. Some Gen 1 Pokemon are needed in order to obtain the related Gen 2 Pokemon, mostly from expanded evolution lines. Also, some in-game progress is dependent on catching specific Gen 1 Pokemon. I'll also try and catch shiny Gen 1 Pokemon if I run into them because they're shiny. Rule number 2. Whenever I catch a new Pokemon, I have to immediately select a card for the Pokedex binder. If I don't already have one in my collection, my chat will vote on one to buy on TCG Player. I'm limiting my options to these sets to better represent the Gen 2 experience. Next, I'm only allowed one save file, so I can't use any tactics to get extra starters, trait evolutions, or Soul Silver exclusives in the run. Any Gen 2 Pokemon that I can't get, I'll need to complete in future generations playthroughs. Lastly, just to raise the stakes, I'm not doing any save scumming, restarts, or clock manipulation. Everything that happens is permanent and in real time. Alright, the Johto journey begins in New Barktown, where very quickly it's time to pick my starter Pokemon. I'm pretty biased towards water Pokemon, so Totodile was my first thought, but since the whole project is an effort to broaden my horizons, I ended up picking Chikorita.
Oh, there we go.
Chikorita is also the first in the Pokedex, so it was a pretty satisfying place to start. And with that, we're hitting the ground running, or slowly walking, ready to start filling up the Gen 2 Pokedex binder.
Oh, I guess I don't even have Pokeballs yet, do I, to catch anyone?
Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. I still have to get through the tutorial before I can catch anything, but even so, I was seeing a concerning lack of Gen 2 Pokemon in my encounters.
Another Pidgey. Alright, looks like it's going to be really easy to build my Gen 2 binder here.
I hadn't seen a single Gen 2 Pokemon in the wild after over an hour, but I did finally finish the tutorial. And then...
As long as we find some... Oh, here we go. Just in time. Wow, I actually got excited. I guess that's what they do by making you look at Gen 1 Pokemon the whole time. Build up the anticipation. Here we go. Nice. Nice.
I had 2 eligible Centric cards in my collection for my chat to pick from, and it was time for me to learn my first lesson about dealing with chat. Don't tell them what you want.
I gotta say, the Ken Sugimori to me, much more the nostalgia of the cards I liked as a kid. Alright, I started a poll. A couple votes for the Sumiyoshi now. Didn't you guys hear me talk about how nostalgic the Ken Sugimori one made me? Winner. Sumiyoshi it is. Alright. I'm not upset about that. Happy day, happy day. Oops. There it is.
From there we could advance to Violet City, and I was able to find a Mareep.
Ooh.
And after an unusually long time searching for a 10% encounter Hoppip, I got to show off my superior gaming skills.
God, I'm so nervous about it, like getting a critical hit here now. Should I just try throwing a ball? Try throwing a ball. Oh my God. What did I do?
Luckily, my next encounter was another Hoppip, so I got to check that box right away.
Right back at it.
Finally, we evolved Chikorita into Bayleaf, which gave chat their first opportunity to go shopping since I didn't have an eligible card in my collection. All in all, a pretty successful first day. To progress further in the game, we first had to take on Faulkner at the first gym.
Alright, let's see if we got what it takes to beat Faulkner. There he is, the Nepo baby. He actually is a Nepo baby, by the way. He only got the gym leader title because his dad was the previous one. Okay. Maybe that's why this is so easy. There he is again, coming in clutch.
As great as it was to get our first badge, this also triggered Professor Elm to bestow upon us an egg. Eggs were introduced in the second generation games and require you to walk with them in order to hatch a new Pokemon, but this actually wasn't the first egg we had gotten. In the previous stream, my chat guided me to Primo, who gave us 2 eggs after telling him what he wanted to hear.
How do you like the way I am so exciting and fun? I'll tell ya. Strong plan. Boy, I've never caught Pokemon this way before. Tell you that.
Honestly, I still have no idea what that was about, but nonetheless, we now have 3 eggs to hatch. This was the perfect time to do some exploring. First, we investigated the ruins of Elf and caught Unknown. Then my chat informed me that we could find Dunsparce by smashing rocks in the dark cave.
Oh, is it happening?
Luckily, we hatched a Wooper just in time for him to help us out with the rock smashing. And Slugma hatched soon after. It wasn't long until we got what we needed from the dark cave. Our next destination was Azalea Town, so we started to head south, but anticipation was growing for our final egg to hatch, which the chat had already nicknamed CTB Jr.
Will Junior hatch before Mareep evolves? Good. Oh.
With that, I had all the new Pokemon I could at this point, and I was able to evolve Flaffy on our way to Azalea Town, so it was time to face the second gym leader, Bugsy. Bugsy's only real threat is Scyther, but I felt pretty good about my chances with Flaffy against them.
Boy, this battle might be tougher than I expected. Oh, wow.
Oh well, Bayleaf is a fine backup.
Holy moly, super effective. Guys, I might have bit off more than I could chew here.
With my top 2 Pokemon fainted, I really didn't stand a chance anymore, so I sadly had to watch them all perish one by one.
Great. Oh no.
Even CTB Jr.
I hate to do this to my boy.
Apparently we have some training to do, but after leveling up Sentret enough to evolve them into Furret, I ended what began as a successful stream on a sour note. Fully rejuvenated, I did some grinding with Wooper, and caught a Zubat, who we'll need in order to get Crobat later. It was now time to enact our revenge on Bugsy.
Oh boy. Alright, if you haven't figured it out by now, I really suck at this game. This battle was winnable, but I didn't go in with any strategy, and my understanding of typing matchups is rusty. But this loss forced me to confront that, and I came up with a new plan, with no help at all from chat. I need to lead with Flaffy and paralyze Scyther with Thunder Wave. This prevents Scyther from attacking first, so once Flaffy faints, everyone else will get at least one shot in. Oh, I guess we didn't need everyone else. Easy. Not gonna lie, I was feeling pretty good about myself, despite that battle probably being more luck than skill. This chapter definitely taught me a lot of lessons, but let's not lose sight of the goal here, filling up the Pokedex. Our second gym badge opened up a new area where we could teach Wooper how to headbutt trees. This would allow us to knock Heracross out of the trees. Oh, whoa, this is new. I guess we'll take an Apom too. After that pleasant surprise, it's back to our Heracross search, which was turning out to be much more difficult than I thought. Eventually someone in chat clarified that Heracross is only found in specific trees, so we finally checked that box. Since most of that stream was spent training and battling, I set up a night stream a few days later, where we could catch the nighttime exclusive Pokemon Hoot Hoot. Alright, Hoot Hoot. And Spinarak. We also knocked a Pinecone out of the trees, which apparently counts as a Pokemon. With all that cleaned up, we made the trek to Goldenrod City before calling it a night. I started the next stream with a surprise for my chat. After watching me slog through the last couple of streams, they gave me permission to level grind off stream, and I really took advantage of that. I had 6 Pokemon right at the verge of leveling up and evolving, so progress was inevitable. Then after evolving Wooper into Quagsire, I learned my second lesson about dealing with chat. Whatever you do, don't tell them what you want. The Neogenesis. This is the Neogenesis. That's option A. And then Neo Revelation. This is the Neo Revelation, the Yukimori one that everybody likes. You guys. I think there is an option to change your vote. Okay, you guys are really doing it to me. I couldn't be upset for very long though, because from here we evolved Hoppip into Skiploom, Togepi into Togetic, CTB Jr., Flaffy into Ampharos, and Hoot Hoot into Noctowl. And while we don't get a new card from this yet, we evolved Zubat into Golbat with the hopes they'll soon become a Crobat. Not only were these evolutions great progress for the Pokedex, they were a significant upgrade of the overall power of my party, so much so that we breezed through our battle against Whitney in the 3rd gym. And with that, it was time to move our attention to a new goal: friendship. I prefaced this whole project on the concept of making new friends, but certain Pokemon in the game literally only evolve once they have a high enough friendship level. Friendship can be increased by walking, leveling up, beating gym leaders, and getting haircuts. Friendship also decreases when a Pokemon faints. Now, I technically already had a friendship evolution from CTB Jr., but they were my child, so it didn't really take any effort. Now I had to put my attention on Golbat, who would only evolve into Crobat if they really liked me. But Golbat was going to take some convincing.
Come with me, we could be best friends. Come with me, we could be best friends. Come on out for a chat, you're my favorite bat. Come with me on a Johto quest. In that critique, you could be a pest. Giving beasts a fright and biting ghosts all night. Come fish with me and battle the gym across the sea. Imagine the bad that you could be if you were friends with me. Come with me. Come with me. Come with me.
We accomplished a lot with Golbat by our side, including getting 2 more gym badges and adding 7 Pokemon to the Pokedex. We had also been gifted an Eevee from Bill, which gave us another friendship to work on if we wanted to get Umbreon or Espeon. We were now at a pivotal moment in our journey. The next gym leader is Jasmine, whose party is headlined by a Steelix, which is a pretty terrible matchup for everyone in my party besides Quagsire.
Quagsire and Heracross are only level 20.
Unfortunately, my focus on Golbat had left Quagsire pretty underleveled, but we were all chomping at the bit to get those extra friendship points for beating a gym leader. It was certainly a risk because we'll lose friendship points if Golbat or Eevee faint. It seemed almost inevitable that this was our last step towards evolving Golbat. All of our chips were on Quagsire going into this battle.
Ooh, one-shotted him. That's a good start.
But then Steelix came out. Now we knew Quagsire was underleveled, but I didn't realize he was 13 levels behind. It was still a good matchup though, so all was not lost. Okay, he got us halfway there. No need to panic.
What do I do?
After chipping away at him, Bayleaf had a chance to pull off a miracle with Magical Leaf.
Whoa. Oh, critical hit.
Despite the critical hit, Steelix was down to 1 HP, so I just needed one more turn to knock him out. From here, Golbat just didn't have the right moves to do anything, so we watched in agony as our favorite bat bit the dust, followed by poor level 5 Eevee. Our hopes of finally meeting Crobat were officially dashed, and I took it a little harder than I expected.
Well, okay, so I guess we're just ending it with a bad ending today. Sometimes that's just how it goes. Next time, well, I guess we gotta make it up to Golbat somehow next time. What do you think, Quagsire? Oh, he's holding something.
After such a close battle, it was clear that a little bit of training would do the trick. But I was done taking half measures, so instead I got 9 levels on Quagsire off stream, while leveling up a bunch of other Pokemon for evolving. We started out by evolving Spinarak into Ariados, Skiploom into Jumpluff, and Slugma into Magcargo. I did make a rule for myself that I couldn't bring friendship Pokemon with me while leveling off stream, so we still have to make up the friendship we lost from Golbat and Eevee last time. To help with this, we spent some time surfing and fishing, which netted us a Mantine and a Chinchou. Our spirits had recovered from our loss to Jasmine, so now it was time to recover our honor.
Oh yeah, this will be a cakewalk. Oh no, deja vu. There we go.
Quagsire had emerged as the powerhouse of our team, and I think this was an important step in gaining Golbat's trust. We now had developed a sense of camaraderie within the team. To test my theory, we just needed Golbat to level up.
Obviously. Oh, here we go. Finally.
Alright, your Golbat evolved into Crobat. After all the anticipation, I unfortunately didn't have an eligible card in my collection, so the chat picked out Crobat Prime from Unleashed for me to order. Full disclosure, I didn't put the Crystal Crobat in the poll because I couldn't afford it and I don't trust chat. We followed that up by evolving Pineco into Fortress, and our starter finally reached their final stage, Meganium. With 6 out of the 8 gym badges in hand, it felt like we were pretty far into the run, but it didn't really feel that way when looking at our Pokedex progress. The number's a little misleading because there are 18 Pokemon that I won't be able to get in this playthrough due to them being starters, Soul Silver exclusives, trade evolutions, or event exclusives. There are also 8 Pokemon that I won't be able to get until after I beat the Elite Four. That leaves 74 possible Pokemon I hope to add to the Pokedex before I face them. I still had a long way to go and it would require some planning. First, with the growing power of my party, I needed a Pokemon who would help me safely and efficiently catch wild Pokemon without accidentally knocking them out. This would become particularly important when catching Pokemon with low encounter rates or static encounters. As fate would have it, we participated in a bug catching contest where we won a Sunstone, which allowed us to evolve Gloomin to Blossom. But that wasn't our Pokemon catcher. The real candidate was the Pokemon we caught to win the contest, Scyther. Although they're a Gen 1 Pokemon, we actually do need a Scyther in order to eventually get Scizor. They're a trade evolution, so I technically won't be able to get them in this run, but my plan is to catch and prepare all Gen 2 trade evolutions in this run so that I can trade them to my Platinum playthrough once I get to Gen 4, finally checking the box. The reason Scyther is a great Pokemon catcher is that they naturally learn the move False Swipe. This move does damage that will never drop an opponent's HP below 1, thus creating a safe and easy catch scenario for us. Okay, so now we're prepared to catch Pokemon, but there's another method we need to consider as well: breeding. Breeding was introduced alongside eggs and is the main way to get them. If 2 compatible Pokemon are left at the daycare, they'll produce an egg, and the egg will contain a baby Pokemon with the same species as the mother. We would need to use this mechanic to get baby evolutions that were introduced in Gen 2, but there was a more immediate problem we needed to solve. We were currently working to evolve Eevee into either Umbreon or Espeon, but we would need another Eevee eventually if we want to get both Umbreon and Espeon. The problem with that was, our Eevee is the only Eevee in Johto. The solution? Ditto. Ditto is able to breed with almost any Pokemon regardless of gender and produce an egg of that species. So after an absurdly long search, we finally caught a Ditto disguised as my new Pokemon catcher. My chat had been trying to get me to start nicknaming more Pokemon and I finally relented. For this one, the chat chose Glup Ditto. The last item for our Pokedex planning was opening up the map. A lot of new Pokemon were still locked behind Route 44, the Ice Path, and Route 45. To unlock these areas, we first had to rid Johto of Team Rocket and beat the 7th gym in Mahogany Town. In the process, we found a Girafarig and caught Shiny Gyarados at the Lake of Rage. This card will return someday in my Gyarados Master List video, so make sure you're subscribed. Meganium helped me clear out Team Rocket's headquarters, which prepared them for an easy win against Gym Leader Price. Then Eevee guided us through the Goldenrod tunnels on our way to clear out Team Rocket from the radio tower. On the way, this happened. Well, here we go. Congratulations, your Eevee evolved into Espeon. We quickly thwarted Team Rocket, but before we checked out the new area, we dropped Espeon off at the daycare to get acquainted with Glup Ditto. The new route got us to the Ice Path where we caught Swinub. We also caught a Jinx with the goal of hatching Smoochum. This was perfect timing because by the time we made it through the Ice Path, we had an Eevee egg waiting for us at the daycare and could drop Jinx off when we picked it up. We now had access to Route 45, which allowed us to catch Phanpy and Gligar. Continuing our map expansion, we also gained access to the Safari Zone where we caught Marill and Larvitar, who we nicknamed Tarby. I was going to have to spend many hours grinding with Tarby to evolve Tyranitar at level 55. Soon we evolved Phanpy into Donphan and Marill into Azumarill, before grabbing the final gym badge without any struggles. It looked like Johto was fully open to us now, but there was one new place hiding in plain sight: the Ruins of Elf. We've had access to the ruins since almost the beginning, but there's a small patch of grass that can only be accessed later in the game by finding a secret entrance, which requires some HM moves to access. The secret entrance was through Onion Cave. Okay, I know it's corny to explain inside jokes, but this one ended up being kind of important. At one point, a chatter accidentally called Union Cave Onion Cave. Go to Onion Cave. For some reason that really tickled me, so I'll never refer to it any other way. Alright, back to it. I spent a long time trying to find my way through Onion Cave, enough so that we hatched an egg. You're probably expecting this to be Eevee, but we had already picked up our Smoochum egg and it somehow hatched before Eevee. Of course, the chat named them after the place they were born, Onion. Finally, we made it through to the secret grass where we could find Natu and Smeargle. We were up to 51 out of the 74 Pokemon I needed before I could face the Elite Four. We had a ton of work ahead of us to catch, hatch, evolve, and track remaining Pokemon on the list, but now the world was our oyster, so we got to it. Oh my god. After weeks of grinding to fill up the Pokedex binder, there was just one left to get in the main game, and it was a doozy. Ho-Oh is the legendary mascot of HeartGold, so this was a major milestone. It was also a pretty stressful encounter. I only had one shot at catching them because of my no save scumming rule. I did have a Master Ball as a backup plan, but ideally I would be able to save that for Lugia in the postgame. Last one in the Pokedex before doing the Elite Four. Let's do it. We started out slow and steady, but Quagsire didn't last quite as long as I had hoped. This seemed like a great time to try out our newly evolved Tyranitar. Did you see what happened there? Unbeknownst to me, Tyranitar had an ability called Sandstream, which kicks off a perpetual sandstorm that damages other Pokemon at the end of every turn. As you can see, I was completely oblivious to this, but my chat certainly noticed. This was a huge problem because if Ho-Oh continues to take damage every turn, then my chances at catching them are really cut short. But my only option was just stick with the plan. Luckily, after a handful of turns, Ho-Oh used Sunny Day, which canceled out the sandstorm. We got Ho-Oh in a position where we could safely continue to throw balls, and throw balls we did. How about this one? After a while, I started to get nervous that Ho-Oh was almost out of power points for their moves. If that happened, they would struggle and knock themselves out. After consulting with chat, I ended up deciding to use the Master Ball. Alright. It's done. Not exactly how we wanted to do it, but we finally had our last Pokemon and we're ready to face the Elite Four. First thing I had to do was pick my final lineup. Meganium, Quagsire, Ampharos, and Crobat had been staples of my team since the beginning. It also took a lot of grinding to get Tarby evolved into Tyranitar, but they were a powerful addition. That left one open slot for my secret weapon. My team has pretty good components for the Elite Four, but once we beat them all, we'll immediately face Lance, who has a pretty tough team of Dragon Pokemon. With that in mind, while I was grinding Tarby, I also had been leveling up a specific Pokemon for the Lance battle, but I was keeping it a secret until then by obscuring my screen. With the team solidified, we bought a bunch of healing supplies and entered the arena. Our first match was against Will, who uses Psychic Pokemon. This battle had a couple of good matchups for Ampharos, but I expected Crobat to carry me here. Unfortunately, after beating Jinx, they were no match for Executor. Tarby cleaned up the rest from there. We had items to heal up on our way to face Koga, who specializes in poison Pokemon. Quagsire quickly took out his first two Pokemon, then Crobat got another chance to shine. Ampharos had no problems cleaning up Koga's Crobat, which I should have done from the start. In the Bruno battle, we finally got some matchups for Meganium, taking out Hitmontop and Onix. Then Crobat flew in to take charge. It wasn't quite a clean sweep though.
They're gonna devolve into Golbat if I keep letting them faint like this.
Back to Tarby to clean it up. The last of the four was Karen with a team of dark Pokemon. Ampharos started us out with a couple of wins, but Houndoom was too much to handle. Quagsire was also no match for Houndoom. Tarby was once again on cleanup duty, then Crobat finally closed out a battle, biting ghosts. Finally, we were off to face champion Lance. Ampharos starts out with a great matchup against Gyarados. Then Lance was about to use his first of 3 Dragonites, so it was time to deploy my secret weapon.
Alright, everybody ready? Boom. Onion. Nobody guessed onion.
This was risky because Onion was not strong enough to survive any attacks, so this needed to be a one-shot.
Nice.
Lance's Aerodactyl was another Ampharos matchup, then Onion took down another Dragonite. I chickened out and swapped to Quagsire to face Charizard, but that didn't really work out, so Onion was back in for the remainder of the match.
Beautiful.
And with that, we were crowned the champions, and Onion was the clear MVP. Having beat the main game, we had a chance to return to Kanto, which gave me a bit of that Gen 1er nostalgia for the first time in this run. There were only 8 Pokemon left for us to add to the Pokedex binder. We started out by catching Electabuzz by the power plant, which eventually allowed us to hatch Elekid. And we found Houndour just outside Celadon City, which we soon evolved into Houndoom. After a few run-ins, we finally had a chance to battle Suicune. After setting it up, we got super lucky and only had to throw 3 net balls before catching them. We needed to catch a Pikachu in order to hatch Pichu, so we made our way over to Viridian Forest. And eventually we beat all 8 Kanto gyms so we could get access to Mount Silver, which is where Sneasel was hiding. Atop Mount Silver was Red, the Gen 1 protagonist, but after some stern warnings from my chat about how powerful he is, I elected to keep my focus on filling up the Pokedex. Finally, after all that, I found a Chansey on Route 15, who we needed to befriend in order to evolve them into Blissey. Since our journey was mostly behind us, I resolved to win them over with expensive gifts and candy, which did the trick. After getting all of our trade evolutions prepared for the future, I just had one last Pokemon left on the list, the legendary Lugia. This would be even more difficult than the Ho-Oh encounter because I didn't have a Master Ball anymore, and Lugia was a whopping level 70. We chipped away with Ampharos, then sent in Scyther for a final false swipe. We can now commence the ball throwing.
Oh my god, we did it. Woo! After 14 throws, we finally caught him. Our journey was complete. Living up to their legendary stature, I actually needed 2 slots in the binder for Lugia because it had the top and bottom half of the Lugia Legends card from HeartGold Soul Silver. With that, I said goodbye to my new friends in the chat and ended the stream with some reflecting to do. Stepping into the Johto world with an open mind and doing it with the chatters by my side really did create some great memories for me. But did I do what I had set out to do? I had noticed that I was starting to get a spark of joy seeing new Gen 2 Pokemon cards, and certain Pokemon definitely rose in my rankings from this experience. But the question isn't, do I like Gen 2 Pokemon now? It's really, do I still feel like Gen 1 is an untouchable tier of its own? And I think the answer is kind of bittersweet. I do feel things changing. Golbat feels like a middle stage Pokemon to me much more than they ever have before. And Crobat has an air of achievement hanging over them, much like Gyarados did for me after having struggled to evolve Magikarp as a kid. Smoochum holds a special place in my heart now that makes it feel like a shame they ever evolved into Jinx. And the Mareep line feels like this awesome 3-stage electric line that we never got in Gen 1. For the first time in my life, it feels like Gen 1 had flaws. But I wouldn't say the gap was completely closed. This bittersweet feeling made one thing clear to me. I had unfinished business. There was still a Gen 1er deep down inside me waiting to take back control. Or maybe not. Maybe they were waiting for me at the top of Mount Silver. This would definitely be a challenge. I had done some level grinding, but Red's Pokemon were still about 20 levels higher than my team. That said, I had also spent some time at the Battle Frontier learning a few moves. These were important for me to enact my master plan, which was to take away Red's 2 biggest advantages. First, Red's Pikachu is more formidable than you might expect because they're holding a Light Ball, which doubles their attack stats. Pretty much any Pokemon on my team was at risk facing them, but I had Onion. At the Battle Frontier, I taught Onion the move Trick, which would force Pikachu to swap items with them, eliminating his advantage. To ensure success, Onion was also holding a Focus Sash, which allows them to survive any attack they take while they have full HP. After explaining this to my chat, they were all very impressed. Onion had served their purpose honorably. Now it was time to take out Red's next advantage, the weather. It's hailing at the top of the mountain, which damages Pokemon on the field, but importantly for Red, it also allows the move Blizzard to hit with 100% accuracy, a very strong move that 3 of his Pokemon have. To remedy this, I sent out Tyranitar, and his Sandstream ability permanently replaced the Hailstorm. Now Blizzard would only have a 70% hit rate. With that, Tarby could easily handle Pikachu. I sent out Ampharos to handle the Blastoise. That was close. Then I sent Meganium out to buy some time. It was time to send Tarby back in, who had learned Low Kick for just this occasion. Ampharos was less lucky against Lapras, but Tarby cleaned up once again. Then my favorite bat handled Venusaur without a problem. I lost Quagsire in the battle against Charizard, which was pretty reminiscent of the Lance battle, but they were weakened enough for Tarby to handle with one more attack. Nice. Man, that went better than I could have dreamed. We officially succeeded in defeating Red, and with them our inner Gen 1er. Not gone for good, but now they were sharing space with my inner Johto bro. To celebrate, I figured out how to add the Celebi event into my save file since I won't be able to legitimately get them in any other game. That left us with 83 Pokemon in the Gen 2 Pokedex binder before I officially closed out this chapter. And I don't think I ever owned a binder more packed with memories than this one. This project works so much better than I could have ever imagined, but will it really work for every other generation? Well, I'm excited to find out.